medical school, and he finished specialty surgery training at Stanford Medical Center. In addition to a 25-year busy surgical practice, he helped run a charity hospital for Native tribes people in Free China for World Vision Incorporated, and conducted HIV/AIDS trials for the ministers of health in both Kenya and Uganda in the East Africa during 2002. He has formulated products for 9 major nutritional supplement companies and spoken to large audiences in Japan, East Africa, South Africa, Canada, and major cities across the U.S. And he comes here. I'll tell you what, does it get any better than that? He was elected a Fellow of the International College of Surgeons in 1994 and was additionally board certified by the American Board of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine in 2001. He's currently semi-retired, he claims, but he keeps on coming to see us. What a wonderful thing. Okay, so let's welcome Dr. Kroll. I'll get rid of my stuff.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Is my voice coming across all right? Everybody can hear? A little louder? Okay, that'll be adjusted in the back. All right. Well, it's a great pleasure for me to be back here with all you wonderful centenarians. No, not quite yet. Wait a minute, that's right. How many of you here are 70 or above? Raise your hands. Almost everybody, remarkable. Okay, how many of you are 80 or above? Still a fair number. How many are 85 or above? 85 or above. Okay, and how many here are 90? 1, 2, 3. Very good. Wow. Well, 2 weeks ago, I just had my 88th birthday, and I'm here today to show you some amazing things. I hope a number of you have a pad and a pencil to make some notes. Well, first of all, I want to thank John Michael and Larry Kaplan for making a space for me to come back and speak with all of you. To Ari Marachnik, our video person back there who's recording all of this. And over here on table 1, the always lovely Joy Burns. And next to her, my beautiful and always smiling wife, Diane. And I'll tell you a little about that later. And it's interesting that John mentioned this AARP article about something that can prolong life and could prolong the life of fruit flies. Well, believe it or not, I'm way, way ahead of that game, because you're going to hear about a product you can get here today at low cost that accomplishes exactly what they've just written their article about, even though I didn't see the article. But this is something I've known about for, 8 or 9 years now. I have 2 major goals for today. Number 1 is to warn all of you in this group. You're a very privileged group of people with the information that I can bring to you today. It has to do with the possibility of a major epidemic, or pandemic as it's called, that could be sweeping the world at any time now. Now that sounds pretty alarmist, I realize. But two major authorities on this, Dr. Mark Siegel, if any of you have seen him on cable news, Mark Siegel, and the other one is Dr. Nauzo of Johns Hopkins, one of the senior fellows there. And they are warning the country today, and you'll see it mentioned occasionally from time to time, although they don't like to mention it much so they don't alarm people. But you may or may not know, and I'll mention this in my presentations, about the 1918 pandemic of flu that killed 80 million not 80 million people worldwide. They're estimating that this new epidemic that could start at any time will be a virus that could easily kill 50 to 60 million. Those are the estimates. So if that comes, despite you being ahead of the game, there could be 1/3 of you that won't be here a year from now if that thing hits. But I have a protection for that presently is not available in any drug, any medicine, any multivitamin or mineral, and I'll tell you about that as we proceed. And the second goal I have is to share with you 2 inexpensive products, one of them my book, that I hope all of you will take advantage of here today. And one of the reasons will be to help protect yourself from a viral epidemic. And I'll explain why this stuff does it uniquely, and that there's no drug or medicine or anything out there that currently can accomplish that. And flu shots, I've avoided getting flu shots every year. They're usually worthless. The 2018 flu shot was less than 30% effective. And the reasons for the problems with viruses is that they mutate very quickly. It's a piece of genetic material. All viruses and flus are what are known as RNA-type viruses, for any of you who are scientists here. And the RNA can mutate quickly, and then a vaccine that's just been developed suddenly is of no value anymore. And what I have to share with you this morning will be something that, to my knowledge, will protect you, because it's protected me for 25 years. I haven't had a virus or a flu or a cold for the last 16 years. And I've had only those 3 things in the last 25 years because of a product you can pick up very inexpensively here at a very low price, and I'll tell you about that when we get to it. A product that I've been using every morning for those 25 years because I was vice president of the company that brought this stuff to the United States from $2 billion worth of research by Soviet scientists during the 1950s, and was brought to this country in 1994 when I was vice president of the company PrimeQuest International. All right. Now, first thing to warn you against, I'm going to save you all a lot of money if you'll just follow this advice. Any product you see advertised on television that has to do with your brain, your health, your this, that, or the other, don't buy it. And I'll give you 2 classic examples of that are currently out there being advertised full bore. One is Prevagen. Anybody here been using Prevagen? Well, congratulations. Oh, one person back there. What's Prevagen supposed to do? Supposed to improve memory. Well, it doesn't work, okay, and I'll show you the official report on that. But so there are more, so don't buy any product you see advertised on television. I'll give you one of the reasons for that, and the reason my product is not on television. Do you know how much it costs to advertise on television? Where you see these ads 2 or 3 times every day, costs millions. So these people are making big money on pushing something that they have to charge a horrendous price for in order to pay for their marketing. That make sense? Now, I'll give you a couple examples in the statistics. Another thing, because you're seniors, you're all going to get things in the mail, advertising. Here's a real gem. 14 of America's top universities converged to create the world's first medically proven anti-aging pill. Sounds like that article we were just referred to. But this is total nonsense. There is no such thing and never will be. Human body is far too complicated for such a simple answer. Anybody here know how many cells in the human body? Well, nobody knows for sure, but I'm going to say it's about 70 trillion. Somebody's dying up there, I'm afraid. Anybody here know how many biochemical reactions are going on in each of your human cells? Over 30 million biochemical reactions complete themselves every second in each of your 70 trillion cells. And all I can say is we have nowhere near totally understanding that whole process. No matter what anybody gets up here and tries to tell you about how bright and the science is moving ahead, science doubles now every 12 months, which means the stuff that was 12 months ago is already outdated. That's how fast things are changing. And the human body, with that amount of complexity, there is no possible way that the human brain can possibly comprehend enough of everything that's going on to come up with a simple answer like the first proven anti-aging pill. Total phony baloney. Here's another one. The most important health pill of the 21st century, Regenify. Rejuvenate your entire body. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Oxford, 31 clinically tested, scientifically studied, 100% proven ingredients. God, that caught my attention. So I'm looking there, and here's a whole group of doctors. They got a nephrologist, an allergist, a pathologist, a gastroenterologist, a general practitioner, a gynecologist. The problem is they don't put any of their names on it. So that's a little bit of a clue what a phony bunch of nonsense this is. But again, they'll sell 1 million bottles of this before the FDA or somebody catches up with them. But by that time, they'll pay the fine for 1 million, and they've collected 14 million. They'll take their 13 million and retire to some little island somewhere. That's the way this game gets played today. So don't buy any product has to do with your health that you see advertised on television. And if you'll just follow that, you'll be way ahead. Prevagen. How can this memory supplement flunk its one trial? November 20th, 2017, according to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, which charged Quincy Bioscience with false and deceptive advertising, the company's own study found that Prevagen was no more effective than a placebo, improving any of the 9 cognitive skills, including memory. So there it is for Prevagen. Okay, so let's get into our slides. Whoop. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. It's the other way around. Remaining youthful with advancing age. That's the great secret that all of us strive for. How can we remain kind of youthful despite our age? My goal for all of you here today is for me to share things with you that are so basic that I believe I could add 10 to 30 years to any of your lives today if you'll just follow what I have to share today. Now that sounds like a wild claim, but it isn't. And one way to take advantage of that, I've decided to give a gift. Any of you who live 30 years from this time on, give me a call. And I'll send you a free box of Raisinets. How's that? At any rate, that's my goal for all of you here today, how to live to be 100 and not regret it. Our current health. America has the world's best trained physicians, most advanced, what happened there? Most advanced diagnostic tools and latest pharmaceutical drugs. America spends 16% of its gross national product on health care, 2.5 times more than per capita than any other nation on earth. but America ranks number 38 for longevity, way, way, way down the list. So there's something terribly wrong going on in America that I'll be identifying for you here today before we're through. American Heart Association statistics, kind of interesting. 82 million Americans have active cardiovascular disease. 870,000 die each year, 2,400 a day. 310,000 die in the emergency room before they can be admitted. 45% of heart attacks occur during age 45 and 65. And for 80% who died, it was their first heart and only heart attack. 30% of those who died had no previous symptoms. And as many women die of cardiovascular disease as do men, and 6 times more die of heart disease than die from breast cancer. What are the major causes of this shortened life and of aging? And this is worth writing down on your notepads for those of you who are taking notes. 3 major issues pretty well cover the whole issue. The damaging effects of stress, and stress comes in many forms, incidentally. It's not just emotional stress. It has to do with everything from, we'll get to that in a minute, the whole stress thing. But processed and preserved phony foods, which are a huge, major problem in the United States. God, I couldn't believe it. Coming down here, you'll see Burger King now has flame-grilled burgers. And when you see the thing there, the burger is black, okay, because it's been burned by the flames. Anything that's been burned black, especially things that are meat and organic things, becomes immediately toxic, becomes filled with cancer-producing chemicals. But as long as it tastes good, they're going to keep selling this stuff. So in other words, another thing, don't buy into any food you see advertised on television. Okay? I've just saved you another $1,000 and maybe a few years of your life. Toxins in food, in water, in air, and in pharmaceuticals. This thing that we just found out in the last week or two is that most of our pharmaceutical drugs, all the generic types, are all made in China now. And if I were Chinese without a, what will I call it, a value system that's kind of Bible-based like our system is here in the U.S., our entire concept of freedom was put together by men who were all Bible scholars. And so our whole system of freedom reflects that type of thinking of right and wrong and good and evil and so forth. But when you have a society that outlaws all that and has none of that, and their only goal is to get ahead and become better than anyone else out there, even if they have to start a war and destroy them, we have a big problem on our hands, and that's going on with China today. The reason I mention these drugs is because they're finding out now that a very high percentage of them are contaminated or polluted with toxic substances, including cancer-producing chemicals. Now, I'm still naive enough to believe it's probably not intentional. But if I were the head of a major country like that, trying to get rid of my only competitor, and I had no biblical type values built into me, it'd be a very simple thing to just start poisoning everything I send to them, knowing that sooner or later it's going to do them all in, okay? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that one is a pretty good one. Phony foods. The common American diet today is loaded with foods that damage our health. Soda pop. And incidentally, on soda pop, a lot of people think if they drink the diet stuff, that's safer. Believe it or not, the diet stuff is worse than the stuff with the sugar, even though the sugar is the big killer in America today above everything else. But the diet things give the body a false signal that there's sugar coming down. That's the way your system works. When you taste sweet, the pancreas puts out insulin. When you taste sweet in a diet pop, Pepsi or whatever it is, your body signals, the insulin comes out, but there's no sugar there for the insulin to put into the cells to burn for energy. And as a result, you get into a thing called insulin resistance, which that, along with another thing called metabolic syndrome, are precursors to heart attacks, strokes, and cancer, okay? That's a lot of stuff to lay on you, and I know you can't take notes on all that, but what I'm telling you is accurate. Gatorade, that stuff should have been outlawed a long time ago. Powerade, another one. Vitamin drinks, all that stuff in plastic bottles that the markets are loaded with. Just stick with water, okay? Admittedly, the water here in Vegas is some of the worst in the country, but you can buy good bottled water from Sparklets or Arrowhead or any of these others if you're interested in good water. Twinkies. Anybody have any idea how many Twinkies they sell every year in this country? 1.5 billion, okay? That's just Twinkies. Forget all the other hodgepodge little combinations of this, that, and the other. Most bakery goodies, candy bars, ice creams, French fries, potato chips, Fritos are all filling our so-called supermarkets. Oh, there's the meal deal from Arby's. First of all, there's this covered up, deep fat fried grease ball in the center of these two buns with a big Coca-Cola. And I don't know, those are French fried onion rings or whatever they are. But talk about foods that are disasters that millions of Americans eat every day. And I suspect that many of you are tempted, like I am once in a while. I think, oh, I ought to go try that. Avoid all this stuff if you can do it. There's one for you. Anybody for a quadruple bypass anytime soon? America is currently being deluged with a tsunami of sugar and junk fast food. Those are two important concepts to burn into your memory. A tsunami of sugar and junk fast food. Cigarettes, we've always known, have been a killer, including the vaping thing, which I'm sure you hear reports on now about how dangerous that is and how people are dying from vaping. But sugar, to me, is by far the most dangerous killer we have in the country. If you want to add years to your life and you can develop the self-discipline to pull this off, always look at the ingredient list on every product and see how many grams of sugar. And if it has sugar in it, and avoid it if you can. And you'll add years to your life. It's not complicated. And sugar comes in many forms and flavors, interestingly. And those are all attractive. Very hard to pass a thing like this, even at Whole Foods and some of these places that are supposed to be health foods, and they got their display cases loaded with this kind of crap. Now here we are, breakfast cereals. Sugar-filled breakfast disasters. There isn't one up there that's worth eating, and yet I suspect that all of us, like I did, grew up with breakfast cereal. For kids, all grew up with that every morning. Put some milk on it, the milk is good for you, right? And if it's whole grains, it must be good, right? Wrong. We take something like corn. I don't know how many of you know, but almost 100% of all corn produced in America today, and this is true for soybeans as well, has been genetically modified, GMO. And it also has been saturated with a thing called Roundup. Anybody here know what Roundup is? You're hearing about it, and you're a group that are ahead of the game because I see the nodding heads. Roundup's a weed killer. And weed killer, Monsanto developed this stuff, and it's the most widely used pesticide, herbicide in the world today. Major vineyards throughout California and France, unfortunately, spray this stuff down all their rows of vines because it keeps the weeds down and they don't have to plow to turn the weeds over. So it saves them money. Unfortunately, the stuff gets into the grapes and into the wines, and almost 100% of California wines today have Roundup in them. And the best way is to look for only organic wines. There's a few good ones. Trader Joe's has 3 or 4 that are quite inexpensive that you can pick up that are from organically grown grapes. But take corn that's genetically modified, it's got Roundup in it, and then what you do, you spray it with white sugar, and you call it what? Whole grain. You call it Frosted Flakes. I used to think that was wonderful. Avoid Frosted Flakes like poison. The corn is bad to begin with, then they load the thing with sugar. And that's what's happening in this whole industry. There's nobody should be eating any of these breakfast cereals. I don't know one. I don't care what the claims are. And I'll just give you one fact that was found out. 1 part per billion of Roundup will destroy the kidneys and the liver in laboratory rats. 1 part per billion. Ever heard of Cheerios? You don't get cheery from eating Cheerios. What you get is 1,100 parts per billion in Cheerios of this toxic substance. You'll never see that reported, but that's a dependable study. Whoop, what happened here? Oh, here we go. There it is. Unfortunately, it's catching up with Monsanto. They now have 18,000 lawsuits against them for people who have gotten cancer from eating foods that have this Roundup in them or for spraying it. And they're giving, these 18,000 are all people who have used the stuff around their own home, spraying it, or had a job spraying it in a vineyard somewhere, that have come down with cancer, and these lawsuits are mounting. So the tide is turning, but it isn't easy because the stuff now contaminates 80% of American foods. Any restaurant you go to, unless it's totally organic, you're going to be getting in the salads and everything else, you're going to be getting these substances. Fortunately, they don't kill us in 1 day or 1 week, but they're all toxic substances that are accumulating that your body can't deal effectively with. I sent a letter to the FDA about Roundup, and they sent me back a letter and said, "Thank you, Dr. Kroll, for your interest in our work. We approved Roundup for general use in the 1970s, so it's no longer our concern." And they said, I would suggest you get in touch with the Environmental Protection Agency. Well, I mean, God, talk about bureaucrats. So those are the problems we have. These things don't get addressed easily because we're such a complicated society with such complicated departments of everything that these are not easy issues to just pinpoint and then somebody does something about them. Now here's one. You'll see in every supermarket today, Dave's Breads, and I suspect a number of you have bought Dave's Breads. Why? Because it's whole grains and they're organic. Organic whole grains and seeds. And Dave, who uses kind of a street term, something that's a killer doesn't mean it's killing. What it means is kind of so super, you call it, this is a killer item. You've heard that phrase. It's kind of a street term. In this case, he doesn't realize it's more effective in the real meaning of the word killer. And I'll show you why. Here on the back is the nutrition facts. Guess how much sugar is down? Can you see on the bottom there? 5 grams of sugar per slice of bread. Totally unnecessary to be there, except Americans have become so addicted to sugar that he knows it sells more of his bread if it's a little sweet. So you take 2 slices of this junk and make a sandwich out of it, you're getting 10 grams. That's 10,000 milligrams of sugar in your sandwich. Those are the problems we have. So look at nutrition facts. If it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 8 or 9, try to avoid it, okay? And you'll be way ahead of the game. So the secret, to make it very simple, is wherever you can, buy organic and look for no sugar, okay? Put those on your notes. That's very important. Buy organic wherever you can and avoid sugar. The what? Stevia. Yes, stevia is the one thing to sweeten if you have to sweeten things, yes. That's the only safe one I know right now. I used to talk about Splenda, which is sucralose. And what they found out in recent studies is that it kills off 1/2 of the healthy bacteria in your intestine. Because we now know you're no healthier than the bacteria in your own intestine. That's new research on what's known as your microbiome, which I address in my book, incidentally. I have a chapter on that. Serovital, reverses the signs of aging. I hope we all get out there and buy some of that right away, okay? Now here's another one of these junk products, heavily advertised on television, very tempting, and it caught my attention because I'm into so much about the aging thing. Well, I did a little study on that, and the way Serovital works, I think I have another one, increases HGH levels. Anybody know what HGH is? Human growth hormone. Well, guess what? Do we need human growth hormone? When we're little children, yes, because that's what it does. It helps growth. When we're, let's say, over age 40, does anyone need more growth hormone? No. In fact, what happens as we're adults is the growth hormone, which is increased 7 times by this junk, your health, it converts to a thing called insulin growth factor number 1, IGF-1, if you're making notes. IGF-1. It's well known, and there's solid science behind this, for coming at it from many ways, that in adults, high levels of IGF-1 promote cancer development. It helps grow cancer. So this whole thing that's supposed to help your levels of staying young and active, will it somehow make you feel a little better temporarily? Yes. Will it help you lose weight a little bit temporarily? Yes. Will your muscles seem to be a little stronger like a child's would be if it was growing up? Yes. But it helps produce cancer, and there are studies that absolutely demonstrate that high IGF-1 levels, you'll live a shorter life. In other words, it's a killer, okay? So I was in Costco a couple days ago. Serovital. Heavy advertising. What did I tell you about what advertising costs? What do you think they sell this crap for? Excuse the expression. That's exactly right, just about $100. Thank you for your honesty. At any rate, $100. It was $95, and the time you paid the tax and things, you're well over $100 for this stuff. And so there it is, and they advertise paying for all their stuff. And it's a killer. So you don't want Serovital. So I've saved you several $100s already. Oh, there it is. And they've even got a beauty expert, age 56, Kim Douglas. It reduces body fat, boosts the mood, get rid of wrinkles, tighten saggy skin, look and feel younger. Yeah, right. And die younger. They forgot to write that one on there. And get cancer. And here's the Prevagen, #1 pharmacist recommended brand. Since when are pharmacists the experts on anti-aging? That's a new one for me too. But at any rate, Prevagen, that stuff incidentally sells for about $60. It probably costs them about $3.50 to manufacture it. I know what it costs to manufacture products. But they have to pay for all their big advertising that's on all the stations. And it's been proven to absolutely make no improvement in mental function in a very good study from the company itself, as a matter of fact. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, professor of neuroscience at Stanford, and just so you know, the stress hormone is cortisol. Where does cortisol come from in the body? The adrenal glands. That's right. They're the little signal markers that anytime you're under stress of some sort, the adrenal glands, getting you ready for fight or flight, in other words, put out cortisol. So it's worth knowing that cortisol is the stress hormone that damages brain and muscles when elevated. So one of the secrets to staying youthful is to try to decrease the amount of stress you're under. Okay? That's worth writing down. Try to decrease the amount of stress you're under. Decrease the amount of stress. And we'll get to that here in a minute. Here's a classic modern person at work. Headaches, no sleep, job, pain, anxiety, relationships, worry, health, overdue bills, fear, and so forth. Life can be called a stress test. And here's major magazines that have featured this. And the one that caught my attention most is the one on the right from the Vaxxed Journal, The Slow Poison of Stress. And a quote from me on the bottom: "It is my belief that we are not genetically equipped to cope well with the growing stresses that modern life imposes upon us." So there are ways around that. One of them, interestingly, is to learn to meditate mornings or evenings. Meditation. Learn meditation. And it's a dramatic reducer of stress. One of the most powerful little techniques. It's another thing that I've been using for years. But I use the one by the Maharaji Indian guy. And they charge a little money for that. The days that I got it way back when, it was only, I don't know, it was $100, and I think they get $1,000 for it now. But you can learn meditation technique of some sort and practice it every day. You'll add years to your life because meditation reduces stress. What does stress do? Believe it or not, it shrinks the brain and destroys memory. Whoop, what's going on here? Uh-oh. Whoop, there we go. Stress suppresses the immune system. That's one reason that people who are under a lot of stress around Christmas time, the stress of too much sugar and too much activity, they'll come down with colds and flus around Christmas time, okay? And stress causes oxidation, inflammation, and free radical formation for any of you who are into those issues, which in turn produce obesity, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, strokes, and cancer. One of the great secrets we know now is that almost all the chronic degenerative diseases of aging start from a systemic, widespread level of inflammation in the human body. And there are a whole group of things that produce that inflammation. One of them is stress, and believe it or not, overweight is another one. Fatty tissue in the human body, when it's in excess, produces things called cytokines that are inflammatory factors that keep the whole body in a state of some mild degree of inflammation. And stress produces anxiety and insomnia, of course. And I believe 95% of all human disease is either from stress or is made worse by stress. Today, I want to share 2 super secrets to stop aging. My wish is that everyone here today will take advantage of both. One is a 2019 inexpensive book, and 2 is an inexpensive herbal supplement that I'm going to tell you a lot more about here in a minute that I use faithfully. There's my book in a 2019 updated edition, and you can get that from Joy over here if you want to pick up a copy of that with the latest information in it. That'll be a simple, inexpensive investment in good health. That is one of my 2 secrets to adding 10 to 30 years to all of your life, okay? The other thing is LHL formula number 1. This is known as an herbal adaptogen blend of eleuthero root, rhodiola rosea, Raponicum carthamoides, Ganoderma, Schizandra, and Guarana. And you use 1 drop of the stuff under your tongue a day. Not 1 drop, I mean one dropper full. And there's the little bottle, Formula 1. And all you do, and what I've done for years now, and it's my greatest secret to avoiding colds and flus, is I'll show you shortly. When you press the ball once or twice, you get about that much, if you can see that. It's about 1/3 up the tube. That's all you need. Under the tongue, and hold it there for 30 seconds. Not quite that well, it doesn't work quite that well, but this is a product I developed when I was vice president of the company that brought these herbs to the United States, and I had a chance to work with one of the Soviet scientists that had helped develop this stuff. And I want to show you why this is so remarkable a product, and why I hope everyone here will pick up at least 1 bottle of this. One person here called already that I have to honor it. They want 6 bottles already. And I had someone call last week and ordered a dozen bottles. But each bottle is 2 ounces. That'll last for 2 months. So this isn't something you have to buy a lot of that's going to go quickly. 1 of those little droppers every morning under your tongue, and it'll last about 2 months for 1 bottle. Now, Eleutherococcus, that word on the end, is one of the herbs that's in this product. Eleutherococcus, in studies done, inhibited the duplication or replication of all RNA viruses tested. Very important. The great 1918 influenza epidemic called the Spanish flu killed 80 million humans worldwide and destroyed entire towns. More recently, the swine flu, the Asian flu, the Hong Kong flu, and the bird flu have killed large numbers. The 2003 SARS, you've heard of the SARS flu, that's severe acute respiratory syndrome, killed 50% of those over age 50 who became infected right here in the US. All these flus are RNA-type viruses, which means Eleutherococcus has been shown to stop the replication, the duplication. In other words, stops that virus cold. And that's the main ingredient in this Formula 1. Now, here's another real fantastic thing. The second commonest ingredient in this product is an herb called Rhodiola rosea. (5-HT level cell proliferative quantity of neurons at the cerebral hippocampus of depressed rats. Well, why that's important is the hippocampus is the memory area in the brain. So here's where your memory gets affected by this. Chronic stress causes depression and death of brain cells in the hippocampus, producing loss of memory. Rhodiola restored serotonin levels, activated neural, that's brain stem cells that grew new brain cells in the hippocampus, restoring memory. Now that's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal characteristic of this particular herbal extract. Now, if that weren't enough, here's just pictures of some of the flowers that go along with those herbs that I've already mentioned. What benefits from this formulation? They increase physical work capacity. This is why the Soviets developed this. They were out to prove that communism was superior to capitalism. And the way to achieve that for all the world to see was to make their athletes in the Olympics win more than anyone else. They developed these things secretly in the 50s, and in 1970 they started giving it to all their athletes in the Olympics. And if any of you remember back then, the Soviets started winning more gold medals than all other nations at that point, and this was the stuff that was doing it. It gave them about a 5 to 6% muscular advantage over other athletes just with this stuff. So it grows new brain cells for memory, marked decrease in colds and flus, blocks the damaging effects of stress, and it helps us live healthier longer. This is one of the studies that I mentioned in my book that so impressed me initially. It was a 7-year Russian study with daily use of the Eleutherococcus herb on high-stress, heavy equipment operators that ran from 1972 to 79. Annual illness rates from high blood pressure, heart attacks, or flu that would result in days off of work was the level that they were looking for. On year one, and this happens pretty much around the world in societies, for people who are intense stress like that, they have a 55% annual illness rate, which meant that they lost days of work because the problems of high blood pressure, heart attacks, or flu were severe enough they had to not be present for work during a few days. By year 3, it had dropped to only 37%. By year 5, it had dropped to 15%, and when they finished the study in 1979, only 3%. What did that prove? It showed that steady improvement in health occurred with longer use of this product. That's what we're talking about with this LHL formula number 1. For age 88, I'm not doing too badly, and I attribute a lot of that to this stuff, incidentally. And certainly, entirely the reason why I've had no colds or flus all these years. I know of nothing else that can accomplish that. Now, here's this extension of life thing that we were talking about. Extension of Drosophilus melanogaster, that's fruit flies, by Rhodiola rosea through a mechanism independent from dietary restriction. I won't get into the dietary restriction thing, but people who can reduce their caloric intake live longer. It's just one of the things that's been well proven. But Rhodiola rosea increased the lifespan of fruit flies by 43%. Now, fruit flies don't turn into an exact equivalent in humans because people say, well, so what? We're not fruit flies. Believe it or not, though, they eat food. They have to digest their food. They have an intestine. They poop like we do. The only difference is we have arms, they have wings, okay? So again, it's not an exact equivalent, but you can test in fruit flies for one important reason. Fruit flies only live for 45 days. Therefore, you can test substances in a controlled setting in a way that you could never do with humans. It had cost umpteen $1 trillion to try to put humans on a restricted diet where they all get the same thing every day and you can control every factor. It's an impossible study. But in this thing, it was done at University of California, as a matter of fact, at Irvine, this study. And that would translate, interestingly, these fruit flies, instead of dying at 45 days, they died at 60 days. If that were translatable, equivalent to humans, and I wouldn't claim this, it'd mean we'd be adding 25 years to our life with just this one substance. Rhodiola rosea, which is the second most important ingredient in LHL formula number 1. Now, this was a list done by one of our members here. Is she here today, I wonder, that did this list? She wanted to be sure about all the herbs that I had listed in here, so she looked them all up independently on her own to see what the science was. And there it is, Eleuthero, Siberian ginseng is another name for that, and Riponicum and red reishi mushroom and Rhodiola rosea, and found out that there was this tremendous list of benefits that came from all those things, just as I've been claiming for them. And here was the rest of that, including Schizandra. Schizandra in Chinese herbal lore is considered a beauty thing for women. They give women Schizandra to increase beauty. LHL formula number 1 is produced in the USA in an FDA-registered BMP-certified facility, best medical practices facility. I've used these herbs daily each morning for 24 years and have not had a single cold or flu for the last 16 years. I use no prescription drugs, have no diagnosed diseases, and have normal blood pressure. You're supposed to cheer at that point, you know. No prescription drug, no vitamin or mineral, no mega doses of any vitamin, vitamin C, for example, no fruit or vegetable juice, or any MLM super supplement, and all the MLM companies, I worked for 8 of them, make super claims for the products that they're selling, because that helps to sell their product. But there's no product out there that can come even close to achieving such results, and no drug certainly that can do it. You've heard of Tamiflu? I mean, it's got nothing, this stuff is 10 times better than any Tamiflu will ever be. Formula number 1 herbs block the damaging effects of stress, re-energize and renew all body systems, brain, cardiovascular, endocrine, and immune systems, and they're the most powerful health restorers on planet Earth. And there's the price for these things. 1 bottle is $46, that's a 2-month supply. 3 bottles, $43 each. 6 bottles, $40 each. So in other words, it's about, since it's a 2-month supply per bottle, it's about $23 a month, not available in stores or the internet or advertised on TV. People ask me, why is it not on the internet, or why don't you advertise on TV? And the answer is, it would have to sell for twice this. This stuff would sell easily for $85 a bottle if you could make the kind of claims that these people put out there on some of their products, like that Prevagen or that Serovital nonsense. But I didn't want to get into that big business. It's too complicated, and I didn't need to do that. It's a product I've developed. I believe it. I know it works. And I hope everybody here will buy at least 1 bottle of that for yourself, if for no other reason to avoid getting this possible worldwide epidemic that they're predicting of a viral flu. At any rate, that's my talk. Thank you very much for your attention.